We're at Churchill Downs today. This is pre-Derby week, and by the time this will be coming out, it'll be a few months past. I'm joined today by Sandi Morris. She is an Olympic silver medalist. She is in the elite 5-meter club with only 3 other female vaulters in history, and she holds the U.S. women's outdoor pole vault record. Sandi, welcome to the Boundless Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Welcome back to the Boundless Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ferrin Peterson, a professional jockey and veterinarian in Lexington, Kentucky. We are here to learn from stories of resilience, risk-taking, and perseverance. Well, Sandi, I have a list of our similarities to start us off. Both of us were NC2A Division I pole vaulters. Sandi was vaulting on the East Coast while I was on the West Coast. Sandi competed first as a North Carolina Tar Heels, then transferred to compete as an Arkansas Razorback. I competed as a Cal Poly Mustang. Sandi, do you even know what a Tar Heel is?
It was something about people with tar on their feet. To be honest, I guess that's why I ended up being a Razorback.
Okay.
Just a cool
better mascot.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
all what it is.
That's why I went to Cal Poly.
Yeah, it's a great reason to pick a school, kids, by the way.
That's right. Go for the mascot.
And the school colors.
Yes. Sandi's current coach, Brooke Rasnick, was coached by my college pole vault coach, Jenny Ashcroft. Jenny and Brooke came to watch me race at Ellis Park a few summers back. We were both born in 1992, the year Pat Day won the Kentucky Derby. We were both raised riding horses. We both love all kinds of animals. We both live in Kentucky now. We both hold school records. We both hold meet records. Both hold league and conference records. We both won multiple college conference championships, both awarded Athlete of the Year. Sandi has competed in the Olympics, and I have watched the Olympics. We both live in the U.S., yet we can measure in the metric system. We are both blonde women, but don't underestimate us. We have both overcome injuries to perform a personal best when it really counts. So, Sandi, women's pole vault debuted in the Olympics in the year 2000. So it has not been around for very long as something that we could compete in professionally. Can you talk a bit about the evolution of the sport?
Yeah, it's honestly been quite incredible watching it develop even since I've been a professional athlete. To think that the first time it was in the Olympics was in the year 2000 is kind of insane.
Right.
You would have thought it would have come a lot earlier than that. And I'm like, wow. And then how far it has come as an event. It's grown so much. Like now there's so much more talent in the field at younger ages, and there's more access to coaching. And every 10 years, I think we're going to see more and more younger athletes jumping higher. Like I've said recently, 15 feet is the new 14 feet in college. And when I was coming out of high school in 2010, my PR was 13.3, and I was one of the top 2 or 3 recruits collegiately in the country. And now 13 feet 3 inches is, I don't want to say nothing, but 14 feet is the new 13 feet. So I'm very curious to see how much more it's going to continue to develop, and just what we're capable of as girls and women. I think we were underestimated for most of history, but now that we are in the pole vault at younger ages with access to coaching and clubs and more talent starting at younger ages, we're going to see insane heights. And someday we will see a woman jump 17 feet. I would like to think that would be me,
Yes.
But if it's not me, I hope I get to see it with my own eyes.
Me too. Yeah, I agree. I've just watched the records or what women are vaulting right now in college, and I've thought the same thing. I graduated 10 years ago, I guess, from college, so same as you, and it's amazing just to see how high they're vaulting now. And I love knowing that all these women are going for it, and we can prove ourselves out there.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing what women are capable of. So
Yeah. Then how did you find your way to being a pole vaulter? Because it's obviously a unique sport.
Yeah. Well, both of my parents were track athletes at Western Illinois. They were both multis. So my dad did the decathlon and mom did the heptathlon. And so I inherited the track gene. And I had this desire to race at a very young age. I wanted to race everybody at age 7, boys, girls, my dad, my mom, everybody race me. And so they were like, all right, she's very young, but we'll put her on a track team. And so age 7, they put me on a club track team.
It's early.
Yeah, I was very young. And I attribute a lot of my success to my parents, because not only the athletic gene, thanks mom and dad, but just their ability and willingness to take me to coaches and club events. And I did AAU track and USATF track growing up. And I mean, our summers were spent at the track.
It's on. Hi, everybody. My name is Sandi Morris, and got first place.
You know, my birthday's in July. Every single birthday was at a track meet. And one of my favorite birthday memories was asking my mom to bring an ice cream cake to a 105-degree track meet. And
that'll make you popular.
yeah, you know, and then the cake ended up melting everywhere. And I'm pretty sure at least one kid threw up after eating the ice cream cake and then going and running a 400 or something like that. But no, good memories. But that's how I ended up in track and field, and it runs in my blood.
Yeah, same with mine. My dad was a triple jumper, and then my older sister, she was 5 years older, and she had a lot of success as a pole vaulter. She went to the Junior Olympics in middle school. Then she broke the high school record. And I never wanted to do other sports growing up. I only wanted to ride my horse. And my parents said, well, you should try pole vaulting. Your sister's been successful. And I always looked up to her. So I ended up breaking her high school record. Sorry, Brittany. But we're still 1 and 2 at our high school. And she holds the pole vault record at Humboldt State.
Okay.
So, yeah, we both went on to have great pole vault careers. But I always looked up to her. And it was great because she always supported me. She'd come to my track meets. She had no problem with me breaking her high school record. Like, she
little
totally
sibling rivalry.
Yes, and she was only 5 foot, so she got a lot of attention just being this mighty little pole vaulter out there.
Little spitfire.
Exactly. Whereas I was 5'4", so I'm like, okay, I have a little bit of a height advantage.
You're massive.
I'm huge. Yeah, that's why I'm a jockey now.
Well, it was funny when we were talking. You know, I'm a certified horse girl as well, and I always dreamed of, maybe I could race horses when I get older. Well, I'm almost 5'9", so I don't think that was in my future, but I don't know. That track is looking pretty nice.
That's right. You could still gallop them.
Yeah.
I have a couple connections.
Okay. Well, as long as I don't break something. I'll wait until October when my season's over. So
okay.
So then we're good.
There we go. We'll do it. Well, that was the interesting thing, too. Most pole vaulters start as gymnasts. I didn't have a gymnastics background, and I was surprised to learn that you did not. But you had an equestrian background, which, of course, that's the reason you hold the U.S. record.
That's got to be the reason.
So tell us a bit about your riding background.
Well, a certified horse girl when I was a kid.
That's certifiable, yes.
It's certifiable. That's self-certified. You know, just I love animals. I've always loved animals. It started at a young age. I don't even know what the inception of it was, really, but I just wanted to be around animals, and I begged my mom to let me start riding horses. And so she found we did have a barn near our house. Cleveland Park Stables in Greenville, South Carolina is where I started riding, and it was English saddle seat, and started riding at age also very young. I think I was 7 or 8, and rode for a couple years there, and then switched over to a different barn from middle school to high school. Well, I had to give it up in high school, which, you know, kind of sucks, but someday it'll come back around. But then I switched over to hunter jumper, and just, you know, getting those young years in a saddle just puts that desire to be on the back of a horse in you early, you know. And what's so fun is even now, you know, I haven't ridden consistently since my high school years, but even now when I get on the back of a horse just casually, I've ridden a handful of times, and that feeling just always comes right back. It's so natural. Yeah. And then also just being athletic too. When you get on the back of an animal, like, you can connect with the body of the animal, and like you can feel the rhythm. And
yeah,
you know,
I think balance is one of the most important things, and you have to have great balance as a pole vaulter.
Yeah, yeah, and just that core strength too, I would assume, just to like stay up there. And
for sure.
I've never gotten to go that fast on a horse.
But you will.
I have dreams. Like, a girl can dream.
That's right.
But yeah, I just love horses. And there's pictures of me. I collected Breyer horses as a kid. So.
Me too.
Of course. Like, so
they weren't cheap, but
No.
every birthday got a new one.
Okay, birthdays and Christmases,
Yes.
And still have that. I should just get the horse collection out and start putting him around the house for my husband to look at every day. I think
Yes.
he'd love that,
At least it's cheaper than him buying you a horse right
This
now.
is true. This is true.
I was talking to him about that yesterday. It's like, she is a horse girl. She wants a horse.
Yeah, I've always been into the expensive hobbies. I don't know why. Like, pole vaulting is not cheap either.
Yeah.
Like, one pole is anywhere from $400 to $800 depending on the size.
But it lasts a while.
This is true, especially shout out to my sponsor, UCS Spirit. Their poles never break. Like, they last a very, very long time. So the most sturdy pole on the market.
Yeah, you did show us your favorite pole yesterday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that pole has a great story. That's my 10-step pole, my old trusty 10-step pole, and I found it under the stands at Arkansas where they kind of had some of the old decathlete poles, and they said nobody was using it. It was the right size for my 10-step training. And this was almost 10 years ago now. Or actually, no, I think it was more than 10 years ago now. And I just claimed that stick. And yeah, it's still a really great training pole. And it's been all over the world with me. And it's in great shape. I've got a little piece of PVC at the bottom part where the pole hits the box, because that's where
Gotten a little banged up.
it gets worn the most. But you just put like it's like a little arm brace for the bottom of the
Right.
pole, and it keeps it from rubbing on the box, and that thing will last forever. So
That's right. It served you well.
yeah, it has. I think I've probably taken more than half of my training jumps on that stick. So it's cool.
And speaking of poles, talk about what it's like to travel with poles. We travel with horses. Luckily, as a jockey, I never have to be a part of that. I've heard before when I've showed up to a race and the trainer tells me, you have no idea, like, the van driver had a flat. They didn't make it this morning. I had to find someone at like 2 a.m. because they have to haul up early, for shipping out of town. So luckily, I don't have to carry that stress. And I've always been fortunate that when I show up at the racetrack, the horse is there.
Yeah.
Jockeys don't own our own horses.
Right.
But with poles, I've heard some wild stories. So tell us about traveling with poles.
I don't know that it would compare to traveling with a horse, but especially not being a living, breathing thing. At least if mine show up broken, it's not alive. So there is that, but it's definitely not easy. The biggest challenge is just the length. They don't break down. So like my poles are about 15 feet long. You've got this tube that has anywhere from 8 to 12 poles in it. Most people don't realize we don't just have one pole at a competition. You have multiple poles because each pole is a little bit stiffer than the previous one. And as you get more warmed up, you need more stiffness. And
Fling you a little higher in the air.
Exactly.
But you don't want to start with a stiff pole or you're not going to land on the mat.
Right.
Not fun. That's happened to me.
Yeah.
I've worn a neck brace.
So you have some pretty cool stories about when it comes to horses and pole vault, some survival stories.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
sure.
tend to pick the safe sports.
That's okay. I think that's why horseback riders and pole vaulters end up horseback riding and rock climbing and doing crazy things like
Right.
that. So
or ninja warriors or
Yeah.
divers.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the same mindset. But
See how long we can go without a major injury.
right. Yes. For some reason, we don't have that, I don't know, the same level of fear of bodily harm as the average person. But
Yeah.
I think we're just very confident in our abilities.
Yeah, we
I'm
are.
going to say that's what it is.
We're
not
confident.
crazy.
We're not crazy.
Yeah.
That's right. We're not certifiable.
But yeah, traveling with poles is not easy. It's my least favorite part of the job.
Yeah.
But when I look at it in a like, oh, this is an adventure mindset, then I can try to like just have fun with it. But getting around is not easy. I mean, I would say the easiest way to get around is driving because I can strap poles on just about any vehicle, like
Yep.
whether it's
I had ski racks.
Yep, ski racks. I mean, if you have roof racks, it's like that's super easy. But when we're driving around Europe, you have to figure out how to strap it through the sunroof, and or like, are we sticking them out the back window? Are we putting them in the front side window coming out. But when you have a tube, you usually can't do that. That's only if you have like
individual poles.
One individual pole we can put.
It's always fun when you're on the freeway and it like catches some wind and it's sliding in the window and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at the people driving past you.
Like, what the heck is that? But yeah, then like the flying is the most challenging part because you have to pick certain flight paths and routes, like make sure the aircrafts are large enough, which, I mean, realistically, every airplane should be large enough to take poles, right? But it's the
not
size.
on like 30-foot poles.
Right, yeah. But it's the cargo holds, and nowadays the cargo holds are being sectioned off, like the design of the cargo holds, because it's designed to hold square luggage, you know? So there are some airplanes that the belly is all divided, so like the divided parts are not long enough for the poles.
Okay.
So we have to know, we just magically have to know. No, through trial and error, we have figured out which airplanes can and cannot take poles, and then book those routes. So we might be on some crazy roundabout way to get somewhere because we have to take 3 airplanes to get to that spot, you know, the ones that can take the poles. And then you're also looking at some airlines have made strictly no pole vault pole policies across the board, no matter what.
They've added that into the fine print.
Yes, the fine print.
No pole vault
like
poles.
Even the major airlines now, Delta and United, don't take pole vault poles. Doesn't matter if it's a huge international airplane, which we are all very upset about because both of them, I don't even remember which one is the Olympic sponsor now. It used to be United. I think now it's Delta. And I'm like, how can you be the Olympic sponsor if you don't even support Olympic athletes on our developmental journey?
They will
Come on.
transport javelins. I mean, that's a weapon.
Right.
Large spears.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it to Javs. They're only probably, a third or half the length of our poles. So,
Yeah.
again,
But they have sharp ends.
Yeah, they do have sharp ends. See, I need her around to make these arguments.
That's
for
right.
me.
I should be a lawyer.
When I'm debating with the person at the counter at the airport.
Right.
But no, my method is just kill them with kindness and try to get them to have empathy with me. Like, look, if these could break down, I would do it. Like, you think I want to travel with these this way? This is not fun for me.
No,
but I have to do this. I have to do this. So,
I knew a pole vaulter who had their poles cut in half by the airline.
Yeah.
Without asking. I mean, I don't know why they think that's okay. That hasn't happened to you?
Yeah. Fortunately, that has not happened to me, but I'm not surprised. Like, the first memory that pops into my head is we were traveling to Doha, and I was traveling with my friend, Canadian pole vaulter Alicia Newman. We get to Doha, Qatar. We'd just flown around the planet to go pole vault professionally at this meet, and her poles come out, and she picks her tube up, and they just bloop flop around her shoulder, and we go, oh, they're not supposed to do that. And then we pull all her sticks out, and every single pole was broken. And I'm actually impressed. I don't know how they broke the poles inside the tube without breaking the tube. That's still the mystery, because it appears they were run over. So looks like the poles probably slid out, got run over, and then slid back into the bag is what we think happened.
Right.
But, you know, I should just put cameras on the poles.
There
So
you
that
go.
they can like tell their own story.
Yes. If poles could talk.
If poles
Horses can't talk either, so I get that.
Yeah, they just give you this look like, that travel sucked, lady.
Yeah, right. This better be worth it.
They're just grumpy.
This better be a good race.
Is there such thing as a grumpy horse? Like when you get them out, they're like, you can tell if they had a good or a bad journey.
Sometimes you can't tell until you're in the race. But you try to pick up on that as you're warming them up. You have about a 5 to 10 minute warm up. A lot of times, though, we ride horses we've never ridden.
Okay.
So we're getting to know their personality at that time before we go stand in a starting gate and launch out of there at 40 miles an hour.
Gosh, that blows my mind. So, okay, I'm just so curious. When you're waiting in the gates to go, like, do you cue the horse to go, or you're literally just waiting for the gate to open and the horse does
You're waiting, and you're sitting upright. You're not leaning forward, but you're holding onto the mane, and the reins are dangling because you want them to be able to, like, stretch out and jump out of there and not have any interference. So by holding the mane, you don't have anything on their mouth, and you're just one with them. So you're just trying to be as still and centered as possible, because to me it's all about being in their center of gravity and not interfering. Sometimes riders try to help them too much and try to lean forward and jump into it, but actually I think the horses don't get their feet out under them well enough. So
Interesting. So you're just trying not to exist, basically.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Interesting.
They're the athletes. I mean, we're athletes too, but I always liken it to being like a Formula One driver where
Okay.
we need to be fit, we need to be able to control whatever happens in a race, but like don't interfere with them. Just be low, still, aerodynamic, and let the horse do its thing.
But then when you're racing, you are cueing them like when to
go. Horses can read our body language through our hands on the reins and through our posture and our breathing. And they can tell when we're nervous. And so it's absolutely imperative that we come out with full confidence, and every decision we make in a race, it's all or nothing. This is the way we're going. No, we're going to wait behind this horse. Yes, you're going to go through that hole. There's a hole that just opened up, and you only have a second to decide, because as soon as you see the hole, it can close like that. So you're either going for it or you're not. You're trying to get them. It's like running the 400.
Okay.
And I think that's helped me a lot, because one of my best traits is getting out of the gate. I think it's from training to get out of the blocks. And it's that same thing where even if you don't necessarily need the lead, you still want to get out of the blocks instantaneously. Like, you don't want to give people a head start. So to be able to get out really quick, have that quick twitch muscle, quick reaction time when you hear the gun. We have a bell.
Okay.
And really, we're just watching the gait and looking for the tiniest movement to just kind of change your posture on the horse and let them know it's time to go. When I'm behind the gate, I can feel their heartbeat under my boot. We're going from 0 in the gate to 40 miles an hour. And yet everything has to be slow in your mind.
Okay.
And then you want the horse to relax, because like the 400, if you sprint the first half of it, you're going to have nothing for the finish.
Yeah, you can't gun the first part.
And I think when jockeys haven't like done a sport and known how that feels, like, you know, you can drive a horse like a race car, but they're going to run out of fuel.
Yeah.
Whereas we know the feeling of like hitting the top of the lane and you can't feel your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings.
Yep.
So all about
Why
like
I did not run the 400.
I ran the 4x4 for a while.
Oh gosh.
And all the training that goes into like the deep breathing, relaxing your shoulders. So I try to think of that a lot with the horse. Like, all right, get out quick. Now relax the horse as quickly as possible. Let them breathe. Let them get into their stride. And then when we turn for home, same as the 400, you know, once you get the straightaway, that's when you really want all out.
Right, right. You have to somehow reserve just that last little bit so that there's still a kick in there. But that's really interesting that you're often riding new horses. Like, so have you ever been in a situation where you did ride the same horse and you kind of...
Which I love that, because then you get to develop a relationship with the horse, and I like to try to teach the horse something each time. So even if they don't win the first race, but teaching them like kind of how to pass, or like, you know, maybe there's a horse that wins by much the best, you know, many lengths, but like trying to get them to pass one other horse just to give them that confidence. Because I find as a runner, it's the same thing. Like when someone just sprints past you and they're much better than you, it sort of like takes the wind out of your sails. Whereas if you can pass someone else, it's amazing how much lighter your legs feel under you all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I try to think of that with horses, where I want them to all of a sudden get that little like kick of like adrenaline and that positive feedback of, okay, you know, you just passed someone and that's a good feeling. And it's like training an agility jog or something. Like, I think animals want to perform. I think they want a job. It's just we have to teach them how to do it.
Yeah.
So being the one to help them, you know, not all riders care about getting like third or fourth. And, you know, if they're not winning, they might let the horse just kind of stop and not try. But for me, horses learn something every time we get on their back.
Yeah, it's training. Yeah.
Right, it's training.
Yeah.
So teaching them to be competitive.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. You can teach the horses to be competitive, but they don't, I'm sure, think of being competitive in the same light that humans do, because they're not as sentient. But
they do learn it.
Really?
Yeah, they definitely, because I've had trainers tell me that some horses that are really top level horses, they'll sulk in the barn for a few days after they get beat in a race.
So they know.
So,
Wow.
But I think you have to teach them that.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's whether they get used to like going into the winner's circle, getting their picture taken. You can tell horses sometimes will pose for the camera.
so
Some love the crowd.
Yeah.
So they're very much animals of habit, as you know. So I think, you know, not getting to do that ceremony after, or figuring out where the wire is. And it's funny how many of them, when they catch on, they'll pin their ears at their competition. Like, no, you stay behind me. I'm going to win this.
I get that feeling.
Yeah. Right? but you have to teach them it. But it is
cool.
so rewarding when you get to stay with a horse, see them develop, and like see that light bulb turn on where they're like, this is my job. Okay, I want to win.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. I feel like you can also, as a person, train yourself to be more competitive in certain ways too. Like it is innately in you as an athlete, but then just competing, over the years makes you more competitive. Sometimes you get less competitive, but that's all I think related to your self-confidence too and your ability to win. So
Yes.
I feel like maybe even the horses think that way too. Like when you're in shape to like win something, you're like ready to go for it,
I'm more confident when I know like I'm in shape, and there's so many things that pole vault taught me that have helped me now as a jockey, because it's such a psychological sport.
I'm
Like
sure.
we've talked before about the wind and the weather, and the feeling of, my least favorite was a crosswind, when you're running down the runway and you can feel it blowing your pole to the side, and
that's
you need to aim at this box, and it throws off your step and where you're taking off from, which affects whether or not we can get into the mat, kind of like a headwind.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first started vaulting, just being very nervous on days like that, or if I, didn't feel like my legs were peppy that day, or I was a little bit sick or something. And as a jockey, we race year round. There's no off season. So of course you're going to have to race when you're sick, when you have minor injuries, it just depends on what you're working through. I know you have a great story of vaulting in the Olympics after a pretty major injury. Talk about that.
So the 2016 Olympics, both of my Olympic experiences have injury involved. One of them ended in a medal in 2016.
Sandi Morris. She is here on a mission.
And the next one ended in me breaking a pole and not making it to the final in Tokyo.
This is not the kind of time you want to pick up an injury, and that's really unfortunate.
So, it can go both ways. But in 2016, I was at a competition. I think it was like about 8 weeks before the Olympic trials. And like the Olympic trials, you take, the top about 18 people in the US, and you put us all in a competition and you whittle us down to 3 people, and those 3 people get to go on to the Olympic Games. So like you have to perform at the trials on that day. And 8 weeks before, I'm at a competition in Ostrava in the Czech Republic. This was my first full season on the professional circuit. I was 1 year out of college, so the traveling, I was still rather inexperienced. It was a very stressful trip for me in general. I get all the way there. It took me 32 hours to get to this competition with my poles, just to travel from door to door. And whatever, I get a couple good nights of sleep. I'm feeling good for this competition. We get out there, and it's funny, you were just talking about crosswind, headwind situations. We had a pretty strong head cross, so that's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
And I should have, being inexperienced, I should have started a foot closer than I did. I did scoot in a little bit, but I needed to start even closer. So I run down. Warm-ups went okay, but then it was, I think, my second jump of the competition. I'd made 1 bar, and then my second jump of the competition, I run down and just get smacked with this really bad head cross. And so my step was too far away. And so one of the most dangerous things to be in the pole vault is taking off too far out. Like we call it out versus under. So being under, you're too close. I'm telling this for the viewers. I know you know all of this. But when you take off too far away or too far out, the pole will overcompress. So like you leave the ground early, the pole overcompresses, and then there's a couple things that can happen. You can break the pole, and then maybe hopefully you'll still end up in the pit, or not break the pole and get shot back on the runway. So really, not too many great options happening there. Or the pole survives, but you don't. But anyway, my pole broke, and I did land in the pit, but the place that the pole broke was directly underneath where my bottom hand was gripping. So just the sheer force of the pole snapping, a fiberglass stick, threw my arm down, my wrist fractured, and then also the bottom half of the pole jumped up when it broke. It jumped up out of the box and hit me on my back really hard. And so it's like I fractured my wrist, but getting smacked in the back with a breaking fiberglass stick, I don't know how many pounds of force were going into that thing when it broke. But I think that's the most painful thing I have ever felt before, was getting whipped on the back with that. But So this happens. I land in the pit still, fortunately, like rotating, landed on kind of on my head, but in the pit. And, the first thing I'm feeling is my back is just stinging from getting whapped. And then I'm like, oh, my wrist hurts too. So this happens 8 weeks before the trials. And, I make it back home. That travel was a nightmare because I didn't know it at the time that I had a fractured wrist, but I'm like kind of holding my arm like this. And then I couldn't lift this arm over my head and have to travel all the way back from the Czech Republic back to the States with a tube of poles by myself. So I couldn't really carry my poles. There was some scene of me in the Charles de Gaulle Paris airport, like kind of tearing up, trying to pick up my poles, begging people to help me. But I won't talk anymore about that scene.
Oh,
But this all made me stronger, right?
that's what I tell myself too. I'm gonna be so mentally tough.
Oh my gosh. But again, the traveling with poles was like the worst part with my hurt arms. But I made it home, and a few days in, I get to the doctor. We find out I have a fracture in my wrist. So we just have to splint my wrist. And, in hindsight, I'm looking at all the injuries I've had, and like breaking a bone is like the easiest thing to heal because you just don't have to move it for 6 weeks and the bone will heal. Soft tissue injuries are worse. Like the wrist fracture was easier to heal than I just got whacked really hard on the back of my shoulder, and I still have some scarring that like clicks and makes noises when I lift my arm over my head.
Yeah.
Years later. So anyway, that's a very long drawn out story to say that now I had to figure out how the heck I was going to be ready to compete at the Olympic trials, about at this time 6 to 7 weeks out. And I couldn't pole vault for 6 of those weeks because I had to let the wrist fracture heal. And it was just a hairline fracture, but it just restricted me from being able to pole vault. But fortunately, my legs were not hurt, so I could run. And in the pole vault,
With
run.
like a cast on?
Yeah, exactly. I have some videos, took some videos of myself running with my little, it wasn't really a cast, it was a splint.
I took my neck brace off to run the 4x4
Nice.
conference meet.
Like a true
Hey,
athlete.
that's what we do.
We don't, please listen to your doctors, you guys, okay?
Don't listen to us.
Do not take our advice.
We're not liable.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But no, I just, I was just really motivated to keep training because I felt like if I could just stay physically fit, I'm not going to forget how to pole vault, as long as I can get my wrist to heal, get my arm to heal in this window of time, in like 6 to 8 weeks, if I don't do anything to further irritate those injuries in that time frame, it'll feel good on the day, And so that's what I did. I ran, I sprinted, I was able to sprint. My arms might have been a little bit funny, but I mean, all pole vaulters run with funny arms anyway when we're not carrying a pole.
Right, we don't know what to do.
I love how you can tell who a pole vaulter is when we're doing our sprints without a pole in our hand. I'm like, oh yeah, you can tell who the vaulter is. We were like running like this. So yeah, just kept training,
And didn't you say you did squats where you would hold the barbell with one arm and someone else would hold the other side for you?
Yeah, so I forget what the bar is called, but there's a squat bar that comes over your shoulders like this so that I could do it free-handed and just held with like one hand. So I could still do squats. I figured out a way to do swing drills on the high bar by making a sling for the one arm. So I'd just put the broken wrist I would put in the sling and then hang on with the good arm. Well, I say the good arm, my shoulder was still hurting. But just keeping that swing motion in my body, the core strength,
Right.
It was the only way I could practice like the feeling of the swing for those 6 weeks. And then in a way it took a weight off of me because everybody was just
not
expecting anything, and in my head I'm like, oh, I'm gonna show them,
right.
They have no idea what's coming. So I was feeling light spirited, and I was just a kid though, I was 1 year out of college and I was the newbie, and it was a good place to be in mentally too. Just like, yeah, I'm gonna go out there like Rocky. Like I've just been training in this dark, dingy gym, coming up with random stuff, to keep in shape. And But about a week out, I was able to plant a pole for the first time and just did some little short approach jumps and just wanted to test out how my wrist felt because I took the splint off and, the bone had 6 weeks to heal that fracture and test it out, see how it feels. And so once I was able to punch the pole a couple times and do a couple takeoffs, I was like, yep, I'll be fine. So
you didn't do a full approach until the trials?
No.
Wow.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I just
That's
went
confidence.
to the...
Attached to it. Let's see if that pays off. It looks like it does. Huge win.
I did pole runs though, which for me, pole runs just mimic. So you do your approach, just minus the vault part. So just setting up your approach on the track. So did pole runs, jumped from short approach, hit the pole a couple times. And yeah, my jump was still there like I thought it would be. And, this is not to say that I didn't have any, like the day that I went to the doctor and he told me my wrist was fractured and I couldn't, do anything for 6 weeks. Yes, I went home and I was depressed and I was like, how am I going to do this? But you can always just stay positive and get creative and you'll surprise yourself.
Yeah.
Like we're so much more capable than we think we are as humans. Like we can do so much more than we think we can. And if you believe that you can do something or that you can do something, you're going to do it.
I've found that I've often had a personal record, personal best on days where I've either been really sick or I remember when I got my PR in college, the week before I was riding my horse out, I brought my horse to college. I was like, again, if I'm going to be a pole vaulter, I'm never going to give up my riding. That's been my mantra. If I'm going to be a vet, I'm not going to give up my riding.
Oh, man, I love it.
But it was raining out. I was riding him around bareback on the trails. We went around like a turn on the trails in the mud, and he slipped out and landed on my ankle. And we were going to UC San Diego, and it was a competitive traveling squad. We had 8 female vaulters, and so, of course, if you let the coach know, sorry, Coach Jenny, that you're injured, someone else will replace you. And so I went, and I remember like hobbling through my warm-ups, just trying not to let anyone see that I was limping, and got my personal best that day. And then so many times as a jockey, I've actually had some of my like best races at major racetracks where I've been sick and the whole week, like, just totally zapped of energy. And I think that's something that you're talking about, realizing what you're mentally capable of and like training the mind, which is a muscle, and having to do that over and over. I think it almost like teaches you how to separate like mind from body and just being like, okay, I can do this, and really focusing in and just blocking out those external factors.
Yeah. And sometimes you have something pop up and it's a physical limitation, but the mind can actually overcome it. The mind is very, very powerful and it can tell the body how to overcome it. I've had injuries happen mid-competition. World Indoor Championships in 2018, I jumped a 495. I jumped at my personal best indoors and won Worlds. And I came down on my pole twice in that competition. And that also was very painful. And in the moment, I was just like, it's like the first time it happened, I go over the bar and I was just doing something funny that day. I don't know what I was doing, but I was going over the bar and I was kind of like throwing the pole at myself as I was going over the bar. And I came over and I went like this, and the top of my pole clipped my funny bone. I mean, coming down on it.
Goes. Amazing jump. Looked like a right elbow is hurting. I hope she didn't get injured there.
Oh, it looks like she might have hurt her elbow a little bit.
Hopefully.
That's not what you want right now. No, she's just overcome a really serious back injury where she said that she actually had a cortisone injected into her back.
And my elbow blew up like a balloon. And oh man, I say the pole breaking and hitting me in the back was the worst pain, but I might change my mind now that I'm thinking about the elbow on the top of that pole. Oh gosh, that hurt.
Especially like having to straighten that arm for the plant.
Right. And so I'm like rubbing it, you're trying to like deter yourself from feeling sensation. I go over and just like hork down a couple of Advil, great for your stomach, mid-competition, no food. Just like take a
few ulcers after.
It's worth it. But so that happens, and I'm like talking to my coach in the stands. I'm like, I just hit my elbow so hard, like I'm just like, I'm tearing up in pain, you know, that stinging pain when you get punched in the nose or something like that. And so that happens, and they're like, you're up. I'm like, oh crap. So I like grab my pole and I just go, you know, I don't have time to think about it. And adrenaline is a beautiful thing too, because I'm sure that, let me tell you, 2 days later, I hurt a lot more than I was hurting in that moment.
Yeah.
And then, so I run down, I don't even remember the ins and outs of makes and misses now. It's been a while, but, when I made 490, I came down on the pole on my thigh, and I still have a permanent dent in my thigh.
Phase. Let's see what she's hitting with her thigh now instead. Oh, she hits the pole with her knee now. It doesn't matter. She goes clear 490. She goes into the lead, puts pressure on the other pole vaulters.
And I have a picture of this moment. It is probably the most epic photo of my career, as I'm getting shish kebabbed on the way down. So I'll have to send you this picture to show. And the top of the pole is just like sticking in my thigh. And I'm just really lucky that it didn't tear a muscle or something. But since that competition, I do have little like fuzzy things that I put on the tops of my poles, because it has almost happened again a couple of times. So I didn't have pole caps on the top of my poles. And of course, the pole vault world is like, why didn't you have something on the top of your pole? You know, well, this had never happened before, okay? I didn't know it was a thing. Now I do. So yeah, permanent dent in my thigh, and my thigh also blew up the next day. But and when that happened, I thought, oh, there's no way I can run after this. Like, my thigh was throbbing, but competition was going very fast, and I was up again a few minutes later to attempt 495 and ended up making 495 as well. So I guess you just have to get injured a couple times and then you're going to jump great. Like,
that's true.
That's all I can think.
Sandi Morris, final attempt, 495.
Adrenaline is an amazing thing, though. And I think just training, like, for so many years as an athlete, I think our pain tolerance changes, and because you learn to work through things. And I told you recently I had my spleen removed. I was trampled by a horse that I was getting legged up on, and I had to drive home 5 hours. I chose to. The track wanted me to go to the ER, but I thought, I'm okay. I thought I might have a little collapsed lung. I might have a
little
broken rib.
Lung,
I'm not
that's
sure,
fine.
But I'm like, that can all be, I know jockeys have ridden through it. Like, I don't want to ride through major breaks or things that will affect me long term, but some injuries you can get through, for the time being.
Okay.
So I was driving home the 5 hours because I had races that week in Kentucky. I just bought a flight to go to Virginia where I was going to ride a stake. So my sight was set on that, and really never thought anything internally was very wrong. So I was going to go to bed.
Feel anything unusual going on?
No,
inside?
just everything felt tight. I mean, getting trampled by a horse, you're just sort of sore all over and kicked around and such, but she never put her full weight on me. So once I got home, then I did realize something more serious was wrong. So I went to the ER, and they transferred me to the trauma center. And after they did CT scans, I did have a fractured rib, 2 fractured vertebrae, and my spleen was in 6 pieces. So they did have to go in and take it out. But I just kept thinking back and going, it's so crazy that I couldn't tell that there was something more serious. But I think when we train and, doing hill repeats, doing weights, everything, we're just training up, our pain tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
We're proud to announce a groundbreaking partnership between Equiscope Performance and the Kentucky Horseshoeing School, uniting 2 leaders in equine innovation and wellness. This collaboration marks a powerful step forward in equine care, where advanced podiatry meets cutting-edge bioelectric therapy. At Equiscope Performance, we've seen firsthand how combining fix-a-hoof technology with electro-equiscope protocols delivers rapid, measurable improvements in equine comfort, performance, and symmetry. Whether it's racehorses, sport horses, or rehab cases, this partnership is already proving transformative. Most recently, we joined forces with the Turkish Jockey Club, where just 1 fix-a-hoof application paired with 3 Equiscope protocols yielded immediate results. Clinical improvement was not just observed, it was scientifically measured through stride symmetry analysis, confirming real-time biomechanical balance and reduced inflammation. This isn't just theory, it's field-proven performance. Together, with the Kentucky Horseshoeing School, we're raising the standard for what equine recovery and performance should look like. Want to see the difference for yourself? Reach out today to schedule a live demo and experience how Equiscope Performance and Elite Podiatry can transform your horse, stride by stride. Follow us at Equiscope Performance and at Kentucky Horseshoeing School for more updates.
I mean, I feel like athletes learn the difference between, well, maybe we don't. I was going to say discomfort and pain. And like our training is being in severe discomfort for prolonged periods of time.
Right.
And so but then at the same time, I could counter my own argument and say that then it clouds the difference, but like what is real pain? Like what is bad pain? And so being able to know the difference between, okay, this is bad pain and this is just sport pain,
Yeah.
you know? So.
And then the weird thing too is I was talking to my trauma surgeon the next day because I kept kind of arguing with him, just having a medical background. I know like surgeons like to cut. And when I came to the trauma center, I heard him talk about removing my spleen. And I said, no way, I feel too good. And so he monitored my vitals for a while and my blood pressure and my heart rate kept dropping. But I work in the ER as a vet. So we see a lot of hit by car dogs with internal bleeding. And one of the things we're looking for is an increased heart rate if they're losing blood. And my heart rate kept getting a little bit slower. So I asked the trauma surgeon the next day, so keep this in mind. He says he only sees that when people are really fit cardiovascularly, that for some reason our heart rate drops as we're losing blood instead of going up. And he sees that in elderly people on beta blockers.
Interesting.
Yeah, so those are the only two times.
The scientific explanation.
I know, I thought that's not a very good adaptive survival response. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I learned that.
I'll keep that in mind, but hopefully I
Yes,
won't
if
need
you're
that
ever
information.
monitoring your heart and wondering if you're bleeding out in the side.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
Well-
surgery went well, but no.
Now you have a cool
Recovery.
story and you live to tell the tale. So
That's right. And that means I'm going to win the Kentucky Derby next year because,
100%.
I mean, what happened to you? So you make the trials, you're in the top 3, you go to Rio.
Yep.
Talk about your day at Rio.
Yeah. Man, I can't believe, honestly, it's been 8 years since this magical evening in Rio de Janeiro. But it is definitely one of my, it's actually not my favorite track memory, but it's up there. But the competition was, my coach likes to say that I didn't start pole vaulting until I knew I was in the top 3, which I think he knows me better than, this is my former coach. I think he knew me better than I knew myself at the time.
Like you needed the pressure?
Well, I think I was a little bit like locked up, you know, jumping tight. And then once the pressure is off and I knew I had medaled, then I really started just like flowing. And, you know, I would assume riding a horse.
Yeah, the
feel
flow
same.
state is huge.
Yeah.
If you override your horse, you get out of sync with the horse and you get in their way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be able to let them like open up their stride, and the same thing can be said when you're running tight on the run and like you're, and I'm a very intense sprinter on the runway, so I've always been in
I've
this
seen your
battle.
pictures. I always had the same look, and college recruits would always say that.
Gonna attack
They're
this
like,
thing.
you're so aggressive on the runway, and then
Yeah.
photographers would take pictures of me, and I'm like, can't you get a picture of me like in the air? I hate seeing
They
this
love the
competition
face on,
Yes.
like hitting the box like this. This is their favorite picture to take.
like
I
we're gonna
swear.
kill someone.
Whatever. I don't make good faces when I vault, but whatever. At least
never
you know I'm trying.
That's right. There's effort.
But learning how to be like flowing and intense has always been like riding that line in my career, like figuring out how to be very intense, hit it with a lot of force, but not tense up. And but I've jumped a lot of high bars being tensed up, so it's kind of like, you know, do I really need to change that? And that's still something that you're always trying to improve but not lose what you're good at,
Your
you
style.
know. Yeah. But yeah, that night in Rio I had to fight to make 485, and that's the same height that won gold, but I had more misses than the gold medal medalist, Katerina Stefanidi, and her and I are friends and acquaintances, and we've competed against each other for many, many years. Yeah, that night in Rio, my coach and I made some good adjustments, and just jumping 485 at the time, I had jumped 495 that indoor season, so it wasn't a personal best, but to be able to do it outdoor season, when you're talking about there's wind conditions and you're in a stadium, and I mean, I didn't have a lot of stadium experience at that point. That was like I said, 2016 was my first pro season, and so I think I had maybe competed in a big stadium like that twice. And so being able to do it with that little experience, I'm very proud of that,
Yeah.
And also having not been able to train that much going into that, my technique was a bit rusty, but that's fine. I was also a kid and, just competing off sheer adrenaline, and athletic ability, honestly. But yeah, I remember my make at 485, and I don't even think I ended up telling Coach Compton this back in the day, but I intentionally scooted up a little bit to make myself closer and tight at the takeoff so that I wouldn't blow through my pole, so that I could hit it harder. This is how my brain worked at the time. Like, let me run myself under so that I don't blow through the stick. But hey, it worked, and I made 485 on that jump, but it was a call I had to make in that split second because my clock was started. My coach is way across the track,
You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Once they start your clock, you have 60 seconds to go down the runway. And so I'm on the runway, the clock's at, like, if I remember correctly, about 40 seconds left. And as long as you start your approach before the clock is out, you're good. And I didn't have time to go over and be like, hey, I'm going to scoot up because I feel like I'm going to blow through this stick if I don't. And I don't have time to, like, change poles either. Like, you could go up a pole. And so I just scooted up a hair and I hit that box with everything I had and I made it,
Yeah.
And it's funny because I see the videos of that 485 jump, and it technically, looking at it, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't a very good technical vault, but it's a silver medal at the Olympics, so who cares?
Right.
And then the bar goes up to 490. My first 2 attempts were good. And then my competitor who was still in with me, Kat, she had some good attempts at 490. And then I was on the runway for my 3rd attempt, and she had just missed her 3rd attempt and was out. And so this was my last shot at 490, which is for those of us in the U.S., about 16-1. And I had a moment where I was like, okay, if I make this, I'm a gold medalist. If I miss this, I'm a silver medalist.
Because you had more misses.
Right. So I knew what position I was in. And even now I can learn from just that youthful free spirit that I had back then. Like, I didn't put the pressure on myself. It was like I acknowledged it and I made peace with it. And I said, okay, I'm just going to give this jump everything I've got. And if I make it, it's meant to be. And if I miss it, I gave it the best shot I could. And I made peace with that. And then it allowed me to jump freely. And that was the best jump of the day for me. Like that. And I missed the bar. I barely brushed it. At the time, I could barely even tell what I touched it with, because as I was turning, my thigh brushed the bar. I don't know. I'm still amazed to this day that it was enough to take that bar off, honestly, because
when you landed, you thought
I was like screaming in the air, like, yeah.
You thought you had the gold.
Like, no, like on the way down, all these emotions. I was like, yes, I won. Oh, dang it. But, I hit the mat and the bar fell, and I was just like, I was so proud of that jump that I put together, because it was a good jump, and I knew that. I was like, dang it, that was it. That was the jump. I did it. Like, it just,
where the standards were.
Yeah, it could have been a standard
forward or back.
Standard change, a centimeter here or there, I'm like, that was the best jump I could have put at it. So you know what? I can't be mad at myself. And, like I said, I still learn from that free, youthful, upbeat spirit that I had as a young kid, when I had all these years ahead of me. Like, I couldn't see the end of my career. Like, that wasn't even a thought, So at the time I was like, oh, I have more opportunities. It's fine, and now it's different. And so I have to continually take myself back to that free spirited jumper. Like, yeah, there's an end in sight, but you still have to find a way to jump free and not put more unneeded pressure on yourself, because that doesn't help.
Right.
You know, that's not going to help you perform.
I've heard a lot of Olympic athletes talk about that in interviews that I've listened to, and
Really?
how their first Olympics was often their best, because then the next Olympics they came with sponsors and they were expected to perform now instead of just being able to.
It sucks all the fun out of it.
Yeah. Instead of,
you know,
right.
Just being able to do something for the beauty of doing it, you know, and for the beauty of like doing something. Like I was thinking about this the other day when I was going for a PR and power clean. Like, I'm pretty new to lifting super duper heavy in Olympic lifts because I had back injuries that prevented me from doing it for many years. So now I'm finding fun in the weight room, being able to find PRs and like go for new things. And it's a lot of fun.
What is your PR?
I just did my PR from last season was 190 pounds. I did 188 the other day, so I didn't PR, but
But right there.
Yeah, I'm right there. And you know, I think it's just finding that fun. And I think that's why I'm enjoying the weight room, is like there's no pressure to do anything, you know. It's just like pushing your body to find and so that's what I'm trying to refocus on in the pole vault too, is like focus back on what I found joy in the beginning, and it's just like seeking those personal bests and improving myself and not caring what anyone or anything outside of me and this body and this shell that I'm in, that I'm like trying to get the most out of this body. Anything outside of this, ignore it, you know.
Right.
This is me, this body is part of me and my spirit and body is one, and this is what, like, my goal is to be the best that I can be every single day, you know, and finding joy in that.
Yeah. It's like when we're riding, of course, the best is when I'm just totally in tune with my horse, in sync. And we know as athletes, you can really only focus on one thing and to get into that flow state. But as jockeys, we're freelance. So we're not guaranteed, even if we've won with the horse, we have no guarantee to ride it back. So riding for different owners, different trainers, there are some who you know are loyal, have your back, and there are others where you feel the pressure of, okay, if I don't win today, you know, if I get a really good second, then I'm probably off this horse. So learning just how to take that pressure and, you know, where to put it and how to get back into it's me and the horse, and, you know, regardless of the outcomes, because in horse racing, it's like we can feel our legs when we know we're not feeling our best, and we don't know, like we were even talking about with shipping, how that horse is feeling.
Sure.
Sometimes they seem kind of quiet in the warm-up, and I think, and then that horse might have an amazing performance that day. So it's just interesting. You know, we try to pick up on as many key indicators in the warm-up as possible, even like how to maybe change that horse's running style. If it's a horse I've gotten to know, and if they're more anxious that day, some of them don't ship as well as others. Some do really great. They'll run well at any track they go to. But thinking, okay, do I need to get this horse to relax more, or do I need to get this horse to focus more? Yeah, but there's a lot that goes into the mental training. And I do study a lot of sports psychology, and
I feel like your horses can be a good teacher for sports psych.
They are.
You know,
Yeah.
like you learn from them as well, which is why I should start riding again, because it would help my pole vaulting,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Tell your sponsor.
Yeah.
Buy me a horse.
Oh my
This will
God.
help me jump
A
higher.
dream come true.
Yeah. And that's also been one of the best things. Looking back, I vaulted for 8 years, and how that's helped me as a jockey, because jockeys don't have coaches. We're all self-trained, self-motivated.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so knowing like how to push yourself in your training, because like we talked about, coming prepared, knowing you're fit. I've ridden 12 races in a day and gotten on 10 racehorses that morning to do speed work. Like,
Wow.
you know, you really can push your body to the limits, but knowing that you're going to be able to have that mind over matter, but also that you've trained yourself to, you know, as best you can. But in the pole vault, what a lot of people don't realize is often when we're going for a new record or a personal best, all of a sudden, all the stadium is focused on you. And it's over the loudspeaker, where most of the time you're vaulting and there are other events going on. But once you're going to break a record, then they're announcing it. So you have to learn to rise to the pressure. And now I really thrive under pressure. I think that's why I enjoy working in the ER as well. But that was something that I had to teach myself as a vaulter. And also we're often the most fatigued because at that point the rest of our competition is out. It might have taken an hour or two to get to the part where the bar has raised enough to where we're entering the competition.
Yeah, that is one thing that is very unique about the vertical jumps, high jump and pole vault, is like you have to be your best toward the end of the competition. And versus like long jump or shot put, you can put out a big one any trip down the runway.
Yeah.
You know, so that is the unique thing about the vault. Something you said brought up a memory from Rio that night. They had the big screen right behind the pit. And so as I'm like going, I don't remember what attempt it was, but they like came over the big loudspeaker and they were like, and here's Sandi Morris attempting the whatever. And there's just my face right in front of me, like up, giant jumbotron. Fortunately, I hadn't taken off running yet, but I'm standing on the runway preparing for a jump. And then my face pops up on the jumbotron and I'm like, there I am, like refocus here. But yeah, you definitely have to learn how to focus when there's all this chaos going on. How do horses handle that? Like, when they are dealing with crowd noise, and I'm sure there's some rowdy fans.
Right.
In training.
I've been on horses that love it, and they're usually the more talented, high-level horses, and they'll seem to pose, and they know that everyone's there for them.
Yeah,
And there are others that we call it washing out, when they just get drenched in sweat, they get the nerves, and that's frustrating because you see your horse going around the paddock before you get legged up and you think, man, they've ran their race. They've just used up their energy before we got in the starting gate.
Yeah.
But I still do my best when I get on a horse like that to have more of a relaxed posture and be stroking their neck and just trying to get them, as much as I can to get that confidence back. So some don't like the crowds. I personally love riding with a crowd. It's a lot more fun than during COVID when the grandstand was empty. And some jockeys say they don't hear the crowd. But when I'm coming down the lane and I can hear them like roaring if I'm in a duel battle, that's my favorite. I'd much rather win head to head all the way down the lane and hear that crowd and feel that energy. And that's something where I've been taking off horses sometimes when they're going to a higher level race and I've won with them. And I've heard trainers say, well, this is where the big boys are, and it's too much pressure. And I think that's a misconception that females are going to cave to the pressure, whereas I'm like, you don't understand us, especially when we've pole vaulted. And I think there's just probably a lot of other sports like that where you've trained that skill and we can rise to the occasion. I'm gonna ride better. Give me the pressure.
100%. I could go on all day about male female topics in sport and how females are underestimated, and 100% of it is inaccurate. And I think that maybe we might handle things differently. Maybe hormonal, we don't have as much testosterone flowing through our body, so we are probably able to think with more clarity in certain situations. And I think we have our strengths for sure because of our sex as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. And for me, horses respond really well to females and just to that gentle touch and knowing it's great being a pole vaulter too because we have amazing grip strength. I used to win hanging competitions and
I'm not surprised.
And it really helps when you become an exercise rider someday. You're going to find how well you can hold a tough horse, but also having the finesse so that you can do both. And when a horse is getting tired down the lane, that you can use that grip strength and help pick them up to help them finish and get their neck in front. So being able to go back and forth is really important. But if you just have, tight-fisted hands on the reins, the horse will never relax for you.
I see. It's kind of like what I was talking about coming down the runway. Part of my process is making sure I don't have too much of an iron grip on the pole as I'm running. I want a nice relaxed grip. I carry with open hands. And then when I hit the plant, of course, you grip really hard. But I'll sometimes feel the finesse of the pole at the back of the runway when I pick it up. And I guess you could kind of equate that to the reins in your hand too, messing with or playing around with how much you're gripping the reins.
And it's if you're running and your shoulders are tight, you're not breathing well. Same thing. We need to breathe well on the horse. They feel our body language. So very similar.
The pole cannot feel my body language, but
But you're going to be more exhausted by the time you're upside down, pushing yourself into a handstand.
100%.
If you didn't breathe down the runway and you were tight the whole
I was
way.
just talking about this yesterday, funny enough, at training with Brooke. And I think what I do, I don't even know what I do when I'm like with my breathing, and I probably shouldn't start thinking about it now because I might freak out on the runway. Like, I'm not breathing. But I know for sure at the back of the run before I go, I take 2 or 3 deep breaths in the nose, out the mouth. And then before I have my first step, my first push out, I 1 deep breath, and then I breathe out as I take my first step, and then I count down from there. I don't know if I'm breathing in at all. I don't know, but our my run is only like 95 feet, so I would like to think I'd breathe in at least once in that amount of time, but I might not. Because I count down and I go 6. So I think maybe that's what I do is I do short little. In and
shorter
out
breaths.
Yeah, but I still have the air in my lungs from that initial deep breath.
It's like swimmers.
Okay, yeah.
They do that big, like, deep inhale,
Get as
exhale,
much
inhale,
oxygen
exhale,
in
and
you.
then they go under.
Yeah, get all that oxygen in you before, and then, recuperate a little bit at a time as you're swimming, I guess.
Right.
I'm not a great swimmer, so I wouldn't know.
Me neither. I more so learned from friends who did triathlons and Ironmans. So
okay, I was like, dang, this girl's done everything.
no, I'm not. I like swimming, but once I swim against someone who's actually a swimmer, I'm like humbled quickly.
Yeah, you talk about lung capacity, and swimming workouts will kill you if you are not in that kind of shape. It's incredible, but it's great training for sprinters. I mean, get those lung capacity and ability up. And the years that I had to swim a lot in preseason were my least favorite preseason. So
not my favorite either.
Yeah.
Another thing that I thought was interesting when you got the silver, which is an outstanding accomplishment. I've heard you say that you heard a lot of feedback of, oh, you almost had it.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of unhelpful feedback too, where I know people mean well, but I've had a couple injuries this year that have just been fluke accidents, but also you don't become a professional pole vaulter or a professional jockey thinking you're never going to get injured. You hope you can avoid it as long as possible, but it just comes with the territory. So I've had plenty of people say, are you going to be a full-time vet now? And it's like, well, I am a vet. I'm doing as much veterinary work as I'd like, but my passion is riding racehorses. But you don't even explain it to everyone after a while.
It's exhausting.
Like,
yeah, I get that. And like you said, people, they don't mean anything bad by it. They're just talking, and they don't realize like the things that they're saying might be the same thing that some other 5 or 10 people have said recently, and it's easy to start internalizing something. And like you said, yes, people, here's the thing. All that was shown of the competition really on like the main NBC feed was me missing 490. The story of how I made the Olympic team with a broken wrist and went on to jump 485 and make that little adjustment on my own in the moment that made me get over 485 when it mattered to medal, and all of that got lost, and so all people really saw was that 490 miss. And so that is the moment that the media chose to highlight, unfortunately. And I was a broadcast major. Do I think that, and I met the broadcasters who wrote that story and had me on the show to talk about it. And I was honored to go on and I talked about that moment. And at the time, I didn't even really realize what was happening, but I wish I had had the wherewithal or the foresight to see that I could have taken control of that moment, being like, well, that was my miss at 490, but what you didn't know is this, and this happened.
You didn't realize how they were going to cut it and use it out of context.
I wish I had just taken, now I didn't have a lot of time to talk, so I can't blame myself too much, but I wish I had taken that moment to tell the story of what really happened, because the broadcast didn't tell the whole the triumph of the story. There was a lot of triumph that happened there, and they focused on the miss, the near miss. And so that I did start to internalize that over the years when I heard over and over again, oh, I saw your attempt at the gold medal height and you almost had it. Oh, man, I was cheering for you. I really wish you had gotten it. And I'm like,
Thanks.
yeah. Yeah. So, it makes you feel like an almost. And I know I'm not an almost. I'm an am.
Right.
I am.
You've had that feeling. You're like, I saw the bar up there.
Yeah,
I have it in me.
I was a champion that day, whether or
Yeah.
not I won the gold
To
medal.
stand on the podium alone,
Yes.
let alone have the silver.
1,000%. And it took me years to ebbs and flows of how I felt about that and trying not to internalize what people would say about that moment. And then Tokyo rolled around and it unfortunately played out in another pole break and an injury. And
this was during the Olympics, correct?
during the Olympics, yes. I made the Tokyo Olympic team. We go out to Tokyo, prelim round. I was feeling great. I mean, I'd had kind of a rough season, but I had some amazing training practices going into the Olympics. And I was confident. I had a great warm-ups. The bar goes up. I jump my opening height of 440, boom over it. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. The next height's 450, and that's probably all it would have taken to get through to the final. I don't even remember what it ended up taking to get to the final because at that point I was injured and getting hauled off the track. No. But and between making 4 meters 40 and my attempts at 50, a rainstorm rolled in, and I'm on the runway about to go. And it starts pouring as I'm on the runway.
Which, for the viewers, it's very scary when you feel like your hand grip is going to slip. We use chalk a lot of times, but that doesn't cut it when it rains.
Yeah. And actually, this is a moment. It's funny I'm talking about this moment, and I haven't thought about this moment to where I'm remembering it right now. I'm like, oh man, that's how that played out. But it started to rain. I was on the runway. I could have gone, but I decided not to because my pole got wet and my grip got wet. And so in that moment, I was like, it's too much. And I started hollering at the officials because the skies just opened up and it started to pour. And in hindsight, I wish I had just tried anyway because maybe my grip would have stayed. But I also have this weird thing about my grip has to be perfect, and this has been a battle.
Most of us are a little psychological about
this is
how much chalk we put on, if we have fresh tape.
Yeah. So this is something that I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have just gone and sucked it up. That my grip didn't feel perfect because they would have let me take in a jump. But after if I had taken that jump, for sure they would have had to shut it down because within that 30-second time window, it went from okay, it started raining to it was torrential downpouring.
Yeah.
So anyway, they shut it down. I'm like, okay, cool. I got time to regroup. I was totally fine with there being a rain delay. They last, the rain will pass, they'll dry everything off. I still felt confident and it'll be fine. Well, about 45 minutes goes by and everybody's like, oh, we're cold. We got to re-warm up. And this has never happened before, but they actually let us take they said each athlete can get one warm-up jump again because of the rain delay. This isn't normal on the professional circuit. It happens in high school, sometimes even in college. But normally they just put the bar back up and you have to go. But I took that one warm-up jump. There wasn't a bungee up. I took a jump. I'm like, heck yeah, I still feel good. Same pole. That breaks 5 minutes later. I took a jump on that warm-up jump. So then the bar goes up. I run down and the pole that I had just jumped on 5 minutes before breaks mid-swing, and as the pole breaks, it breaks towards the bottom of the stick, and so the pole drops as I'm swinging on it, and I strained a hip flexor, or a grade 2 strain. Not bad, but in the moment, terrible. So I strained my hip flexor. I'm landing in the pit, grabbing my hip flexor, and it takes,
especially because that's the leg that you jump off of. Swing back. Yeah. Swing yourself upside down. That hip flexor does a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Still feel mine from pole vaulting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, hip flexor injuries are a pain because it's how you pick your knees up, put force into the ground, and then also, as you said, that's the swing leg. That's my trail leg. Well, they give me an equipment failure, so I still have 3 more attempts at this height. I tried to run down the runway and make that bar. The first trip down the runway, I did actually leave the ground. I went down a pole, and my poles are very close together. So it was only like a little bit softer pole, but I was like, okay, I'm hurting now. So need a softer pole anyway. So I go down, I take off the ground, but when I went to swing, it just grabbed, like that injury just worsened.
I'm sure it was so tight.
Yeah. And so then I landed in the pit. I'm like, I've pulled a muscle. So that's when it just starts to set in, how are you supposed to process this when it's happening? Like my Olympics are over. I'm processing this in this moment, my Olympics are over. But then in the same moment, I'm like, no, it's not. I still have 2 attempts. I can jump over this, just trying to fight through it. And I got on the runway for my next 2 attempts, and both of them just, run down the runway, can't jump off the ground, crash into the pit, just land in the pit, and I'm just crying my eyes out,
Every 4 years,
gosh,
this opportunity.
And I was so confident. That's the part that really sucks, is I really believe that if that injury hadn't happened, I would have been a medal contender. And that is what hurts the most. If I had gone in like in bad shape and like didn't feel like I was going to do anything, then I'd be like, oh, it's whatever. But yeah, so that was really, really hard. I would say that was, the last 2 seasons for me have been bad, but that was the hardest point in my career, just like you said, because Olympics only come around every 4 years. And that's really the only competition that the world really pays attention to. And that's where we get paid. Like, that's how we get paid by sponsors. We also get paid based off medals at world championships that are every other year. But the games, man, the games are where it's at. But to this day, I still have an Olympic medal. So at least I got one at my first game. So anything from this point forward is just icing on the cake, So I think that happening made me kind of take a step back from sport a little bit mentally for the months following that, and just looking at life as a whole, like what all I've already been able to accomplish at that point. And it made me have a greater appreciation too for even just being there, like how many obstacles you have to overcome just to make a team. And even though
top 3 on the day for the trials, and you have to have gotten the qualifying mark that year. Doesn't matter if you got it the year before. And then to perform at your best on the Olympic day in a new country.
And some of it's chance and luck, and it was unlucky that pole broke at that moment. That's one of my trusty poles that I must have had. Usually when a pole breaks, there's some kind of nick or damage.
Like sometimes you spiked it,
like something could have happened in the chaos of the rainstorm, because all the athletes, we were like scrambling to get our poles under cover, and I think somebody probably spiked it in the chaos, and so that was most likely on me for not getting the pole out of the middle of the chaos fast enough. And who knows,
but when you're running through your brain, you're like, how could I have prevented this? And it's probably like, I don't know if I could have.
And we'll never know. It broke in a very strange place, like 3 feet up from the tip of the pole, which is like, what, super random, which makes me think a spike damage or something, So, the triumphs and the tribulations of sport, and there's some things that are in your control and some things that are not. And I'm still proud of my prep for the Tokyo Olympics. Like I was ready. And it's not, I try to tell myself it's not your fault. It's easy to continually blame yourself when things go wrong, but sometimes it's
that's why you're a professional athlete. Like, you know how to push yourself hard. You know how to be your own critic.
Yep. And we are our own biggest critics.
Right.
And the longer you're in a sport or an event, the harder I have had to work at not being such a critic of myself, because that's what kills the joy of doing it, And so I've been on this journey the last few years of just like, embracing that carefree spirit that made me great to begin with. Not that I don't want it, and I'm not going to work as hard as I can.
Right. You can have both.
You can have both.
Be able to turn on your intensity on the runway, but also.
And that's when you perform your best, is when you're not thinking or not.
Don't let your frontal cortex get in the way.
Yeah.
Like so much that is trusting
you
that
should
muscle
make a t-shirt that says that.
Have like an X for the brain.
Don't let your frontal cortex get in the way. I love that. I think we need to make a shirt.
All right, we'll have that. I'll wear mine to my races. You wear yours
Yeah.
to your vault competition.
That's hilarious. I love that.
And your husband, Tyrone Smith, is also an Olympian. I think he went to the Olympics 3 times.
Yes.
He holds the long jump record in Bermuda.
Yes. Yeah. Olympic finalist in 2012. His story is very, very different than mine. I came from a life of privilege and where everything was provided to me and parents, amazing, loving parents who could take me to everything. He came from nothing and he had basically no support. He grew up in poverty and forged his own path. And I mean, he is he is the most organized, motivated, driven person I have ever met. And he is the reason he is what he is, you know? And I'm like,
Truly self-made.
wow, if I had been born into his situation, I don't know that I would have ever gotten this far, you know, because what he has is just this survival instinct. And that's something you cannot understand having if you were never put in a situation where you needed to have it, you know? But we've had so many conversations about, and he's helped me a lot, but so many conversations about sport and making things happen. And he's great at seeking out resources, you know, as someone who was not provided everything as a kid, he learned how to find something, you know, and go get it for himself. And he's taught me how to be even more of a go-getter. Like, I would have loved to say I'm a go-getter, but after knowing my husband, I know he's a go-getter. I'm not like that. So trying to I have learned a lot from him about that.
Yeah, and what's it like traveling to the Olympics and having that support system of someone who really gets it?
Yeah, I kind of feel bad because he's been my sports psych basically. But you know, I think in hindsight I'm like, yeah, I don't think I could have had success being with someone who wasn't an athlete, you know. And consciously it was never a decision, oh yeah, I have to be with someone else who's an Olympic athlete, but it really helps.
Yeah.
You know, like right now Tyrone's living in Atlanta and I'm living here in Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville, excuse me.
That's right, Louisville.
Louisville. And we've done long distance for 5 or 6 years of the 8 years we've been together, you know. And that's because he understands that I need to be in certain places to work with certain coaches, the coach of my choice, the place of my choice. You know, right now he's kind of stuck in Atlanta because of a job. He is trying to get here soon, but he doesn't mind the long distance. He understands that we're doing this for my career. And he's retired now, and he's like, okay, right now all the eggs are in your basket, and that's fine, you know. And it's amazing to have such a supportive husband, you know, that understands the sacrifice that it takes to do this and to really go after it. Especially, you know, I had some early years that I don't want to say were easy, but like life was easier, you know. I wasn't married. I was younger and carefree. Yeah, like I should have thought more about the future, but I didn't. I was just going with it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, this is serious, you know. This is the last portion of my career. I would love to not just make it through LA. I would like to be globally competitive through the LA Olympics. And right now I have to spend more time and energy on my body than ever. Just to keep a 32, 33, I'll be almost 36 at the LA Games. To keep a body with that much more mileage on it, in the same healthy shape. My shoulder problem, I haven't been doing a lot of overhead stuff or sprinkling it back in. That I could easily be in when I was 24.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more dedication and a lot more discipline. Discipline with diet and hydration and sleep and just being on top of everything, treatment, physio. Yeah, I could slack a little bit when I was 24, 25, 26. Right. And now it's like, no, if I want to be that good still, I have to be extremely disciplined. And so this last 2 years, especially, it's been like, okay, what am I what have I not already been doing that I can do better to give my body a better chance of not getting injured, of being stronger? How do I need to change? My training looks very different now than it did a few years ago. Like more focused on where am I going to get the best bang for my buck out of training? Low risk, high reward focus on what we're doing in training. And yes, a lot more energy, money, all of that into the recovery stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been refreshing getting to know you, because most people our age, we've talked about friends are in a different phase of life. A lot of people from the outside look at being a professional athlete, a professional jockey, and my friends say, oh, like your life is so exciting, it's so grand. And there are definitely exciting parts, but there's also a lot that we sacrifice for this. And, there's a lot of times in between those, Olympics and World Games and, the exciting parts of being a professional athlete. What can you say about like the sacrifices?
I mean, it's your whole life. I miss family events. I do my best to go to everything that I can, and not miss everything. But you have to be willing to sacrifice going to weddings, going to even funerals. Like, I have a niece and a nephew who are now they're at the ages where they're getting into sports, and I would love to be able to go to all of their sporting events. I can't make it to that much. I live in a different state, and I'm always training, and travel puts a lot on my body. And I hate that I can't go to all of their games and all of that, but I think I'm also setting an example, and I try to remind myself that, this is me setting an example for them. Like, if you want something, you have to sacrifice for it, and I make sure to verbalize that to them because they're very young, and I tell them, like, I wish I could be there, but your Aunt Sandi has something to do.
Yes. Yeah. That's great.
I'm the cool aunt. It's my favorite part of life.
I don't have an aunt that's an Olympian or a pole vaulter.
I got to give it to my sister. She's definitely made sure the kids love their Aunt Sandi and know like what's going on in my career and stuff. And sorry, like, when you get choked up and you just can't.
And sometimes you don't expect it.
I'm like, I was not expecting
that. I found that
a
few times where I'd talk to people about like my accident, where I could kind of joke about like, oh yeah, I lost my spleen, and then there'd be certain people where I'd start talking about it, and as it would approach the part where things went south, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I didn't know I had that in me.
Yeah, and especially like when you're talking to somebody and they start to have a little bit of like, you can see their empathy come through, and you're like, I know it sucks.
That's right. I get
you start crying. I can't help it, and then it's like, okay, I need to like leave the room for 2 minutes and then come back. Okay.
Yeah, as a jockey, if we take off a horse to go to a wedding, a funeral, family event, go see a friend, there's always a jockey who will take your place and ride that horse. And most of the time you don't get that horse back.
Yeah.
And even I took a 2-week trip to the jungles of Southeast Asia, and that's one of the things that's nearest and dearest to my heart, is giving back, doing my global mission work as a vet. And it's really hard to do because I lost so much business just from being gone for 2 weeks. And
that's hard.
Some of the trainers almost felt like they're trying to punish you, like not to do that again. And you just think, wow, how do you balance this? And I have, had a hard time with friends understanding why I can't be there for their wedding. My family, my immediate family, my parents have been really supportive about understanding when I can't come to a grandparent's funeral or things like that. But yeah, people don't get that, or how often friends are asking when we can plan a trip together, I can come visit them. And it's like, when I'm injured, I can. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. For me, it's like in the month of October, the 1 month of the year where I'm not training or competing or anything, I can do whatever. That's it. So if we're going to go on trips, it's in October.
We have no months off.
Oh, gosh.
They used to have part of the winter off, and now racetracks, we're just, as soon as we transition from one track to the next, it's the following day, the next weekend.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, luckily it is my passion, just like it is yours, so it's very much worth making those sacrifices, but it is hard when friends are in a very different place in life. And it's great that Tyrone has been in your shoes and understands what it takes. Like, if you're not all in, then for me, this sport is very much about getting opportunities from others. So even if you outtrain your competition, outwork, whatever it is, you still need to be given the opportunity to ride the horse that has a chance to win the race. But even if I'm riding horses of lower quality, as long as I know that I'm controlling my variables and I'm always coming like as fit as I can be, on the right nutrition plan, rest, like I study a lot of that as well, and understanding just what it takes to have your body always ready to perform at its best, then I can always go to sleep with my head on the pillow knowing I did my part.
Yeah.
And we can't control all the outcomes. But
Yeah.
if I wasn't giving it 100%, then I wouldn't be satisfied in what I'm doing.
Yeah. 100%. And you just got to keep showing up.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, as a jockey, like just keep showing up and taking those opportunities. And I feel like the family and the friends who care enough about you to know will understand.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is like my family understands how important it is to take care of my body, and not just take care of it, but optimize it, and it takes a lot of sacrifice to be living in a state of optimized body. It's great. I love feeling great and being healthy all the time. Like, it's amazing.
Yes.
But man, it takes a lot of sacrifice, even just one fun night out on a weekend can trash my training that week, you know? And that 1 week of training can delay my preparations for a meet that might be 5 or 6 weeks out, but that's going to affect how much I lift in the weight room that week, how many jumps I can take, and that affects my preparations. And so even the smallest thing, catching a cold on a plane because I wanted to go to some event, that cold can set you back 2 weeks. And we have deadlines, just like any other industry. My deadline is I have to be 100% ready to compete on this date,
Yeah.
And so, and the problem with the body is you can plan as much as you can, but you don't always feel as good as you plan to be. Not always, but you do everything you can.
And you have to perform at a certain level to keep your sponsorship.
Yep.
I have to perform at a certain level to keep my owners and trainers.
Yep. And you have to give yourself the best chance possible. So
Right.
you're not going to catch me out at the bars on Friday nights, eating fried food. It's not going to happen.
Exactly. I can barely even go to a late night dinner because we usually start at 5:30 at the racetrack. And if I'm not sleeping well and I have a long drive, I have to give up a lot of that. And it used to feel kind of awkward about having to eat very healthy in front of people, because people make comments like, "Oh, you're being good." And it's like, well, no, but this is who I am. I'm a professional athlete. I need to nourish my body if I'm going to train this hard. Yeah. But I've had to get over that people-pleasing side of myself and just thinking, okay, you do find who your true friends and supporters are. That, I even had a friend, it was her wedding, and she just had me come on a weekday when I wasn't riding and spend some time with her before her wedding. And she's my closest friend. And I thought, yeah, she gets that.
She gets it.
She was a track athlete in college with me. So
okay, see, it helps.
Yeah.
It helps. But yeah, the people who understand, they care the most, and that's all that matters. It's like, I can't worry too much about pleasing everybody. And it's like putting that people pleasing thing aside. And I'm a big people pleaser, and learning how to be, I don't even want to call it selfish, but being okay with putting yourself first and your career first. You know? And you have to decide what your priorities are, and, weigh the options,
Yeah. And I like what you're saying about how you are a role model to your nieces, nephews.
I try to be.
Other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to be. And it's okay to put yourself first when you're chasing, when you really want something. Like, I really respect somebody who is on a mission to do something, you know? And you have to respect people's missions.
And there's a reason why it's so hard to make it to the Olympics.
There is a reason. I wish it was easier, but no, I don't at the same time, because then it wouldn't mean as much. So.
Right. That's what I have to remind myself if I get frustrated about how hard the climb is. And I go, but I don't think it would be rewarding if it was easy. I don't think I would be in this.
It wouldn't mean as much. I mean, after everything I've been through in my career, I can tell you my Olympic medal means more to me than it did the day that I won it, after everything I've been through, because I realized the gravity of what I did. I don't think I realized the gravity in the moment. You know? I hadn't been through the trenches yet.
You do have to go through the trenches.
Yeah. So, and when and if I do medal this year at the World Championships or make the next Olympic team, it's going to mean that much more,
Yeah,
after having been through all of this.
it does. And you're just 3 inches from the world record. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the world record is 5:06 and my PR is 5 meters even.
Okay.
So.
And then in feet and inches, the Americans.
Is
it 16.7?
I'm gonna have to think about this.
I
Yeah.
want to say the world record is 16.7.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
16.7.
Yelena who has it?
Yep, Yelena Isinbayeva, and 5 meters is right around 16.4.
Okay, so
It's
yeah,
either 16.3 and
about
3/4
3
or
inches.
yeah.
Which is easier said than done. Once you start getting into those higher levels, I remember early on in vaulting, you're like breaking your PR all the time.
Yeah,
And
I was spoiled. Yeah, my come up was insanely fast. Like in 2014, my PR was 14.7,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of 2016 is when I jumped 16.4.
Wow. Would you say there was
Crazy.
something that made that switch?
Well, I had a coaching change when I went to Arkansas. I transferred from UNC to Arkansas in 2012.
Tar Heel to a Razorback.
Tar Heel to Razorback, and I got in the hands of Brian Compton. He still coaches at Arkansas, and I worked with him for the bulk of my career. He coached me to the American record, and it was switching to him, and he just got the best out of me. He's like military type style training, like gets the best out of you, and I do really well with that like tough love, like basically he would yell at me and my reaction was to shut him up with my actions. So I would just like give him this look like he's not going to yell at me for that again, and I'd like fix it,
Yeah.
And it took about a year to get used to that mentality, and then once I embraced it, and I started to thrive under that like tough love military type training. And his training was very also militaristic, like high volume, very high intensity, we're here to work, most times no talking, like no BS, like get to it,
Was he a Marine?
His dad was military.
Okay.
He's a cowboy. He's from Texas.
Okay, that's right. 'Cause horse people are tough.
Yeah, he's tough. And I don't want to say Compton doesn't have any fun sides. Like he definitely can also randomly be goofy. And one of my favorite Coach Compton memories is early on working with him. I was running by him and he lassoed my foot with a bungee.
For a cowboy.
Yeah.
What am I, a calf?
And to lasso with a bungee is actually impressive.
It is.
So I think I also vibed with him as a coach too, just because I liked that cowboy like mentality too, and I embraced it. So thrived under him, and when I transferred in, I was outside of my comfort zone. I had shaky nerves. I had been put back at a longer approach with bigger pulse before I was ready, and I was and I'd never been that way until that sophomore year of college. I just kind of fell apart, and there were a lot of things going into that. And then I transferred to him, and he brought me into a very short approach, got me just working on the basics constantly. Like he didn't let me go back to a longer approach for months and months. But then when I was ready, I did it, and I quickly started PRing. But I think as a professional, now looking back, I know what he did was he had me starting to master the fundamentals. Okay. And I think some coaches, especially young coaches, make the mistake of putting the cart before the horse, like bigger pulls, longer runs. Like if you're not a master at the basics, don't even worry about that stuff yet, because you're not even getting the most out of where you're gripping and where you're running from right now.
Okay.
So just getting better at that. So the fundamentals, mastering the fundamentals. That's what being a professional is.
Yeah.
And so he got me better at the fundamentals, worked on those a lot, and did drills until I was sick of them, and then also just got me to my physical peak. Like he kind of trains the heck out of his athletes. But if you're a raw athlete, you're gonna do well as long as you don't get injured with the volume. And I was very fortunate to not be injury prone, especially in my younger years. And yeah, he got the best out of me. I was strong and fast and tough as nails.
Yeah.
If you can handle training with Coach Compton in practice, like you can handle anything in a meet. And So yeah, if you embrace that mentality, you just get really, really tough.
All right.
Too. So yeah.
And now, what are you most looking forward to, and what are your goals going forward with your pole vault career?
I have some big dreams still. I'm at a weird place in my career where I know there's people out there who are like thinking I'm done. I had a rough 2024 season last year. I missed the Olympic team by one spot. But it was still a good season, and I finished after that, I still had some Diamond League competitions, and I finished the season with a couple of, I think, 3 heights over 4 meters 80. I jumped 483 and 482, and like those are really solid heights. And I think part of what I've been going through is just realizing that just because of age, I haven't lost anything, and I think that's something that maybe a lot of athletes go through as they get over 30, and it's that exterior voice that starts to get internalized, like, oh, when are you having kids? Oh, you're still doing that,
Right.
and trying to not internalize that,
People ask me what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm living out my dream right now.
Well, it could also have to do with the fact that you look very young, so maybe they don't know
people
that
who know
you are
me,
grown up.
that I'm a vet and a jockey, because I still think I have to pick one.
Yeah, I feel you. Well, I just say we never grow up. How's that?
Okay, I like that.
I'm going to live in Never Neverland, and I'm going to pole vault as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'm going to
transition to riding racehorses.
Exactly, yeah.
That's right. We don't have to grow up.
Yeah. I'm never growing up, so I'm just
take that.
Oh, man. But no, it's like, as long as I can do this and still make a living doing it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that is where I draw the line, is I'm like, okay, am I making money doing this? Am I able to support myself? I don't want to be unrealistic. But if I'm able to do those things, then yes, I'm going to do it as long as I can, because it's, your career as an athlete is such a blip in your life, and 15 years from now, 20 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, wow, what a fun time in my life. And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a time in your life.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're going to have to find a way to continue with life once you're not able to do that sport anymore, which I'll probably continue pole vaulting until I'm old and gray, like just for fun.
Yeah.
But
Masters leagues.
Yeah. But being able to do it on the pro level is very short, And so the fact that this is my 2025 is my 10th outdoor season, 10 years as a pro. And that's a big milestone,
Yeah.
But I came here to Louisville to work with Brooke Rasnick at the university here, the U of L. And my training partner, Gabby Leon, she also is one of the best vaulters in the United States, World Championship finalist in 2022. She's younger than I am. I think she's 26. And so we trained together a little bit when I was in Atlanta for 2 years training. I was, I've been out there just trying to find like my next situation. I've been looking for a coach who can be a good partner with me and just help me get the best out of my body and my technique. We're working on some things, but it's more about just like getting me healthy and physically where I need to be and stay to be able to continue pole vaulting,
Right.
My technique,
the fundamentals down.
Yeah, the fundamentals. And so tried to coach in Atlanta. That didn't work out. And Gabby also tried that coach in Atlanta, and that's how we came to know each other quite well. And then she came back here after Atlanta, and I went back to Coach Compton for last year, the Olympic year. And I kind of knew going back to Arkansas was like a Hail Mary for the Olympic year, because I was in a scramble. I was like, well, I need a coach. I need a place to train. I could try training on my own, but it was an Olympic year. And at the time, I made the best decision that I knew in the moment, and Coach Compton was like, yes, come back, train with me. And it was a great year. Like, we accomplished a lot last year. Just, didn't quite put it together on the day that mattered, and that's unfortunate, but I still have a lot to build off of from last season, and I'm in a really good place this season. But after the Olympic year last season, then I was like, okay, I know I just need like, what's going to help me with this next chapter of my career, because I believe there's a whole chapter left.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I'm at the end.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
maybe
block
I'm
out those voices.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
get it.
I've been through that. I've felt all the feelings of like, oh, maybe it's over. Maybe I'm done. You know, maybe I suck now and I just need to call
people
it.
who aren't pro pole vaulters who are asking you when you're going to retire.
Yeah. It is mostly just older folks who don't even understand that I'm doing this
Those are the voices
for a
that
job. Yeah, and they're just
me too. I'm
they're
like,
just
well,
they don't mean anything bad.
right, they
You
don't.
know.
We just have to learn to keep searching within our own heart.
Yeah, exactly. And I teach those people too about the pro circuit and how it all works. And they're like, oh, I had no idea, you know? Okay. Well, and, you know, the older generation is all worried about when you're having kids. And now we're like, oh, we can have them when we're ready. And with the help of the medical world too, you can have children when you're almost 40. I mean, I know 40-year-old women are having kids. Not that it's the safest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Allison
maybe I should.
Felix has been a great example.
When you're an athlete and your body is optimized, I truly believe I have a much better chance of being able to start a family at a later age because of that extreme health that I'm in, you know. And it's going really well. I moved here the 1st of January, and this first 3-4 months has been really good. Just planting my boots and getting back to the fundamentals and really honing in on, like, I've had a couple of tweaks, my shoulder and my hamstring tweak that have been with me for a couple of years. It's like tendinosis and
just
like
that lingering,
like a shoulder impingement like syndrome and stuff that you would expect of a body that has pole vaulted for 20 years.
Yeah, a lot of force on that right shoulder.
Right. But one interesting thing that I have noticed is the tendons and ligaments might be more fragile, but the muscles, I'm actually stronger than I've ever been in the weight room. And of course, it does also have to do with the fact that I don't have bulging discs in my back anymore. So the one injury that I did struggle with early in my career was I just would have these back problems. And it was weird because I had, sometimes it would be upper back, sometimes it'd be like thoracic spine, and every once in a while even lower lumbar. And so I think it's just all the stress that my spine would go through hitting the takeoff position. I would get little disc bulges in my spine. I never had a ruptured disc, thankfully, but it would happen in different places, and then it would just send my back into spasms. Like my whole back would just cramp up, and I wouldn't be able to move for like 2 weeks. It was just like, oh, I can't bend. All of a sudden, I feel like I'm what I would assume it feels like to be 90 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't move.
My back.
And so this would just randomly happen. The first time it happened was in 2016, indoor season, but then it would just go away. And one time I finally got an MRI. I had to have an MRI when it was flared up so that we could see because basically what was happening is the disc would like kind of pop out a little bit and touch the nerve stem and cause my whole back to like cramp. But then my body would suck it back in.
Went down.
Exactly. And so it was kind of like these little episodes that would like happen, and finally got an MRI when it was happening, and we could see it was like a little finger sticking out.
There it is.
Yep. Oh, there's the disc protrusion. So anyway, that would just randomly happen. And I did have one back episode actually about a month and a half ago, but I don't think it was that. I had just gone on a 6-hour drive, and the next day I woke up and I couldn't move for a week or two. I was feeling it, but I think that was more sciatic nerve sitting on and I refused to stop and pull over. I was determined to drive those 6 hours, so that was my fault. Yeah, so history of back problems. Really took Olympic lifting, anything where I was catching weight or even just picking up weight. Every once in a while I'd pick up weight, like doing power cleans, and it would just and my back would just go. So I was like afraid to lift, so I did have some help in the weight room at the time, like Coach Compton, great pole vault coach, but like he didn't know how to write a strength program for me. So he helped me link up with a strength coach, Matt Clark, who now he coaches at K-State, but he mainly worked with the men's track team at the time. And so I started working some with MC, and he was helping me just write modified lifts, like how to stay strong, even though I couldn't do Olympic lifts. And it was fine because even in my college years and my developmental years, Coach Compton never had us like going for weight in the weight room. It was more higher rep, lower weight, explosive movements was his kind of like focus. And that worked really well. I mean, heck, I jumped 5 meters that way.
Yeah.
I didn't, that was before I ever started really pushing like, oh yeah, I'm power cleaning big weights, you know? But what I'm discovering now, thankfully, my back has been cooperating, and basically in 2020 to 2021, I started dabbling again in the Olympic lifts, so specifically hang clean, power clean. I never had to take squatting out of it because controlled movement was fine. It was just like the like explosive, aggressive moves, like picking the weight up and throwing it. They would flare it up. But in 2020 and 2021, I started reintroducing Olympic lifts, just kind of keeping it light and not heavy, and just like experimenting with it. 2022, I started getting onto like a true cycling weight room, like trying to do weights that I'd never done before, and just getting comfortable with it. And then 24 last season, I was like able to go full in on like a true Olympic lifting cycled plan, also written by Matt Clark, MC, and he's a great strength coach. And also just being in the weight room, like this is the best thing I got from going back to Arkansas, was getting to be in the weight room every day with that pro squad, and also with MC there working with me. Because the first time around when I worked with him, I was kind of, you know, he was working with the men's track team and he would write my stuff, but we weren't able to work together one-on-one all the time. But last year, he was there every day, and it just, you know, he was able to watch me do the lifts and help me with my technique, and also help me understand like where my thresholds are. Like I had no idea what I was capable of. Like I still don't really, like I'm building up to that. So here I'm working with Adam Petway. He's a strength coach and a really incredible biomechanics specialist. And so he's helping me build off of what I learned last year in the weight room, keep applying that, and also helping me correct some things that are going on with my hips and my body and imbalances to really optimize my body. And also it'll be great for injury prevention too. And I've been able to lift some really big weights in the weight room this year so far. And I guess coming all the way back to my original point is, now that I can lift this way, I think it's going to kind of help counterbalance father time, because in the weight room, you can strengthen tendons, ligaments, imbalances, all of those things. You can fight that using the weight room as a tool.
And strength and lifting coaches have been very instrumental to my career as well, and I really enjoy that side of training.
Yeah, I do too. I didn't used to, but now that I feel like I have a better understanding of the weight room and the purpose and how it can be used. And I've just started to really like power cleans too. So
that's my favorite Olympic lift, actually.
They're fun, right?
Yeah, explosive and
and it's like
powerful.
When you go to pick up this heavy weight, it mimics, in my opinion, that moment where you're just about to do something all out. Like it's not the same as like, let me just go rep out some.
It's like the pole vault.
Yeah, exactly. So you can practice that
explosive,
all out mindset in that moment. You know, it's cool.
Yeah. Well, this is very exciting. I'm looking forward to following your career more closely now, and gonna have to come to some of your meets.
I would love that. Yeah. I wish I was jumping
to races.
Yes. Oh, I would absolutely love to do that. And then maybe someday I'll be out there with you.
That's right.
I don't know, but I am too big. So just training.
Gallop them. Get you up there.
That alone is my dream. I don't need to compete. Just experience what it's like to gallop on a horse.
Yeah.
Describe that for me.
Just having an open track and a really athletic thoroughbred underneath you and being in sync as one, it's the best feeling. And when you connect with a horse and you're seeing their ears are twitching back, even though they're going full speed, but they're still in sync and asking you, like, do I go now? Do I go now? I love that part.
Yeah.
So it's the teamwork, the connection, and you just feel like nothing in the world matters. You can have a terrible day, things going on in life that, get you down. And when you're out there with that horse, like, nothing else matters.
It all just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So you'll feel it one day. We'll get you out there. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on the Boundless Podcast.
Yeah, I'm honored. We had a lot of great conversation. Can't wait to go back and listen to it.
For sure.
And just like that, season 1 of the Boundless Podcast comes to a close. This season, we sat down with legends like Steve Cawthon, Pat Day, Chris McCarron, and Sandy Hawley, each sharing stories of courage, setbacks, and history-making moments in the saddle. Patty Cooksey and Perry Oots showed us what it means to defy limits. Dana Zook and B-Buck pulled back the curtain on the people who keep the sport running strong behind the scenes. Jimmy Lovett gave us a global view of the breeding world, and Caitlin Morgan proved there's no one right way to break into the equine industry. And finally, Sandi Morris took us beyond the track, into the heart of an Olympic pursuit that mirrors the same grit found in every great rider. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for being here, for listening, learning, and chasing the boundless alongside us. If you enjoyed this season, please leave us a review. It helps more people find these stories. And if you'd like to support the mission and future of the Boundless Foundation, you can donate through ferrinpeterson.com. Be sure to keep an eye on Ferrin Peterson's Instagram and ferrinpeterson.com for updates on Season 2, because we're just getting started. Until then, stay bold, stay curious, and keep going beyond what's expected.
Boundless is a podcast that explores the stories of individuals who have accomplished the seemingly impossible by breaking molds and redefining success through unique challenges, pivotal moments, and unbreakable determination. This episode of Boundless is brought to you by Amwager, where horse racing fans can be part of the action anytime, anywhere. Watch, wager, and enjoy races from tracks across the country on a fast, secure platform built for racing enthusiasts. Whether you're following your favorite horses or jockeys or discovering new tracks, Amwager makes it easy to stay connected to the sport you love. Getting started is simple. Sign up today at amwager.com and enjoy a 100% deposit match. Terms apply. See amwager.com for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, help is available. Please call 1-800-GAMBLER.